In the luminous city of Velthara, suspended among the nebulae of the outer rim, stories flowed as easily as the blue mist that curled through its streets. Children of the Ilari, a race of elegant, long-lived beings with silvered skin and radiant eyes, grew up with lullabies of far-off myths. Among them, the most whispered were the tales of humanity. To the Ilari, humans were little more than bedtime legends, creatures of fire, muscle, and iron will, said to have existed long ago before vanishing into the void. They were called stormbloods, beings who rose from fragility to challenge the stars. The elders said these were simply allegories, crafted to teach courage, not real histories. No one believed that humans ever truly walked the galaxy. No one except for Lysera. Lysera was young by Ilari standards, scarcely more than 50 cycles, equivalent to a human's 20. Restless and curious, she spent her nights sneaking into the archives, scrolling through the fragments of forbidden lore. The more she read, the more she ached to know. Were humans real? Could something so fierce exist outside of story? Her tutors dismissed her questions with indulgent smiles. Humans are tales, child, they told her. Fairy fires meant to guide youth. Nothing more. Still in her dreams she saw them. Warriors wrapped in crude armor, faces lined by struggle, eyes burning brighter than suns. And then came the day when myth became reality. Middle. The skies of Velthara rippled as an alarm screamed across the city. Lysera was in the great library when the crystal walls shivered, their glow dimming. People ran through the streets, voices trembling with one word she had never heard before outside the oldest fragments. Drexari. The Drexari were invaders, brutal scavengers who descended on civilizations like locusts, stripping them bare. The Ilari had not faced them in centuries. But today, their fleets poured through the star lanes, ships black as obsidian, weapons crackling with stolen energy. Lysera stumbled out of the library, staring in horror as fire trailed across the skies. The Ilari were scholars, architects, and diplomats, not warriors. Their defenses, graceful towers of light, shattered like glass under Drexari cannons. She was herded with other civilians into the lower tunnels when a thunderous quake rocked the ground. Walls split. Smoke filled the air. She ran, heart hammering, through a collapsing corridor, until she saw him. Figure not Ilari, not Drexari. At first, she thought he was a hallucination, conjured by fear. But no dream could move with such brutal certainty. He was tall, broad-shouldered, armored in something dented and scarred but functional. His face was rough, unlike the polished perfection of her people. Skin tanned, jaw stubbled, one eye bearing a scar. A weapon rested in his hands, spitting light that tore through Drexari with devastating efficiency. Lysera froze, whispering the word she had never dared speak aloud. Human. The man turned at her voice. For a heartbeat, their eyes locked, hers wide with disbelief, his narrowed with urgency. Then he barked something in a harsh, clipped tongue. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the meaning. Run. But she didn't. She followed. His name, she learned later through fragmented translation, was Commander Jace Arlen. He was not alone. There were others like him, scattered through the battle, each one wielding weapons and strategies the Ilari had never seen. They moved with raw determination, their actions stripped of the elegance her people valued. And yet they were effective. The Drexari who had seemed unstoppable now faltered under human resistance. Lysera's mind spun. Humans were supposed to be metaphors, not flesh and blood. Yet here he was, sweat and scars and fury, carving through nightmares. She clung to him as he led her out of the crumbling sector, covering her with his body when debris fell, shoving her forward when fear rooted her feet. She had never felt so protected. When the battle slowed, she found herself in a hidden bunker where human survivors gathered. They looked nothing like Ilari. Shorter lives had etched hardness into their features, but their eyes gleamed with a strange light. Not the glow of Ilari bioluminescence, but a fire born of survival. Lysera could not stop staring. These were no fairy tales. They were warriors. Real living warriors. The next days blurred into one long survival. Lysera stayed with the humans as they struck against the Drexari, ambushing supply lines, rescuing captives. She learned that the humans had been hiding in the edges of the galaxy for centuries, rebuilding after wars that nearly annihilated them. Most civilizations believed them extinct, or never real to begin with. The humans preferred it that way. They thrived in shadows, unseen until forced to rise. But Lysera's world shifted more than once. Not only were humans real, they were different. They bled easily, yet they never stopped fighting. They were fragile compared to Ilari, yet they endured wounds that would fell her people instantly. They laughed in the middle of despair, joked in the heat of battle, and sang in guttural voices when the stars seemed darkest. One night, as Jace repaired his rifle under the glow of a broken console, Lysera asked the question that had burned inside her since the moment she saw him. Why do you fight so hard, even when it seems hopeless? He looked up, eyes tired but unwavering. Because if we don't fight, he said, we lose everything. And humans don't do surrender. Lysera felt something shift in her chest. This was the essence of the myths, standing alive before her. Fire in fragile form. The final battle. The Drexari grew desperate. Their fleets closed in on Velthara, intent on breaking the last defenses. The Ilari leaders, resigned, spoke of surrender. But Jace and his people had another plan. One that required risk, sacrifice, and audacity. The kind of plan no Ilari would ever imagine. Lysera begged to join them. Jace refused at first, but her determination broke through. She knew the city better than anyone, its tunnels, its power conduits. Reluctantly, he agreed. Together, they infiltrated the heart of Velthara's defense grid, crawling through collapsed corridors and firelit ruins. Drexari patrols stalked the halls, but side by side, human grit and Ilari cunning cut through them. Lysera saw Jace take wounds that should have ended him, but he fought on, blood streaking his armor, eyes unyielding. At last they reached the core. With Lysera's knowledge in Jace's hands, they rerouted power, creating a surge that overloaded the city's ancient defense towers. One by one, beams of radiant energy flared back to life, striking the Drexari fleet. The invaders screamed through the comms, retreating under the sudden counterattack. Velthara's skies cleared, the stars visible once more. The city was scarred but alive. And standing in its heart, Lysera knew the truth. Humans were not fairy tales. They were real, and they had saved her people. Ending. When the smoke settled, the Ilari gathered to honor their unexpected allies. For the first time, Lysera saw her elders bow in respect to beings they had once dismissed as fables. The myths had walked into reality, changing everything. But for Lysera, the revelation was deeper. She had touched the fire of humanity, seen the strength born of fragility, the will that bent despair into defiance.